Welcome to an all new episode of International Innovations. I'm your host, Jim Kunkel, and soon we'll be joined by William Dempster and Andrew Yaroff, both specification specialists on passive fire protection with International AkzoNobel. William, Andrew, and I will have a conversation on fire protection, why proper application matters. This episode is brought to you by Chartec Fire Protection. Passive fire protection are systems that, by a process of heat absorption and or thermal insulation, reduce the rate of temperature rise of a structure or asset being protected. PFP systems require no intervention to work if designed and chosen well, and will require little or no maintenance for the life of the installation. Joining me today, I have Bill Dempster and Andrew Yaroff. Bill, let me ask you this first question. Related to passive fire protection, why is it so important that applicators, and I'm talking about the craft workers, why do they need to be trained and qualified?
Well, it's a good question, Jim. I think first and foremost, people need to remember that we're talking life safety here. If you don't apply, you can have the greatest product in the world, can pass all the tests, but if it's not applied properly and you actually have a fire, or some type of incident, whether it's jet fire, hydrocarbon pool fire, or a fire in a building, and the material fails, that's an issue. That's a big problem. So you need to make sure that the folks putting this on are trained and qualified. Secondly, is in order for you to maintain certain types of certificates, the materials have to be put on properly. And it'll list it right in the type certificates that in order for you to receive a 2-hour rating, 3-hour rating, you have to have certain criteria. So it has to be at a certain thickness. The reinforcement has to be at a certain placement. It has to be a certain type of detail. And those are absolutely critical for the performance of the passive fire protection material, whether it's epoxy tumescent or whether it is a cementitious product or even something like lightweight concrete. So you got to make sure that the folks putting it on and your partner with as a supplier are not only trained but are qualified to put the material on. And each material could have certain nuances. Epoxy XYZ could be different from epoxy ABC. So it's just not a general, we just need to get the mix ratio right. We need to get the pressures right. You've got to know how to put on the materials and its little nuances. Signing somebody up for a paper certification or a paper qualification, it doesn't really cut it. We at AkzoNobel don't take that approach. I mean, we'll go through, depending on the application, a 1, 2, or 3 day, pretty extensive application process and a qualification program. And then the applicators and the people that are actually applying it in the company are on a provisional, and our folks tech service guys will stay with them to the kickoff to make sure that our tech service guys are satisfied that they can put our materials on properly, and then they are considered fully qualified. And those don't last forever. 2 years, and you got to be recertified and qualified. So it's pretty important to us.
Yeah, it sounds very important. So, Andrew, let me ask you this: why is it so important to have Chartec approved contractors and shops? Could you talk a little bit about the applicator QC program?
Yeah, so we support our contractors. We help them in understanding the QC requirements. We have a lot of guiding documents available to assist the applicators as they're going through the process. And as Bill mentioned, we also have our technical service group. But it's super important as well, just for the individuals themselves to be qualified. You know, we look at the company has to be qualified, and the individuals themselves have to be qualified to put on the products. And it's extremely important, as Bill mentioned. There's nuances even within our own product ranges that you have to understand going in between products, product A, product B, as well as from other manufacturers. You just have to take all those nuances into consideration. But it's extremely important to have good documentation. I think we do a very good job here of providing a lot of support to our applicators in guiding them and showing them, providing the resources that they need, helping them understand what the paperwork should look like, the QC paperwork. I mean, the paperwork trail in itself is extremely important. So it's just super important that everything is documented clearly and very concise.
Okay. And Bill, let me ask you about the surface preparation requirements. Typically, when we're looking at applying passive fire protection on structural steel, what type of surface preparation is required?
Yeah, it's another great question, and it sort of segues off of Andrew's comments on quality control and why we qualify our applicators, and that there's criteria that's required that you absolutely must have in order for the material to perform properly. And it's just good coating practices to have good surface preparation. It's the key to any of these products that for not only fire performance but longevity. A lot of the products and a lot of the projects themselves are in areas such as C5 Marine or C4 along the Gulf Coast. They could be down in Mexico. They could be up on offshore up in the Atlantic provinces up in Canada. So you've got to make sure that you have the proper surface preparation. Now, what's considered proper surface preparation? Well, that's determined by the suppliers. All of us do a full battery of tests to make sure we get optimal performance, typically on epoxy and tumescence. You're looking at a surface prep of a minimum commercial blast, the old SP6. You're looking at a minimum profile of 2 to 3 mils sharp profile on the steel, because you've got to put a primer down, and that primer's got to bond to the steel, and then you've got to put your first layer of epoxy over that primer, and that's got to bond to not only the prime steel, but it's got to be well bonded and mechanically bonded to the substrate. Cementitious products, although they're getting a little better, they typically will go on less than clean surface, simply because they've got a reinforcement attached directly to steel, and the material bonds to that reinforcement. It could be chicken wire, but it's a mechanical attachment that's required. So it's absolutely critical right off the bat that you have the proper surface prep.
And if I could add on to that real quick, surface prep will always vary based on what your substrate is. In fireproofing, we see a lot of galvanizing. That's just the way that the industry has been for so long. So, you really have to take into consideration, along with the surface prep, make sure to inspect your substrate. Galvanizing, there's extra steps involved with the surface preparation. Surface prep, you can always find the answers, always refer back to the manufacturer's guiding documents, the application manuals, quality control manuals. 95% of the questions we get asked, you can probably find the answers in there, and we're always happy to answer those questions. We want our applicators to come to us, and I like to call them sanity checks. I probably call Bill two to three times a week, if not more, just to call him and say, hey, man, I know what the answer is, but I need to run a sanity check by him. It's okay to call us and ask questions. We want you to do that. But yeah, you really do need to look at what your substrate is and assess it from there.
So to continue on regarding the application, one of the methodologies is using plural component systems. What are some of the process steps that go into applying passive fire protection using plural component. Andrew, I'm going to have you go ahead and continue on with that. And then Bill, if you have anything you want to add, please do after Andrew.
I think first and foremost
Sure.
with plural component, the one thing to consider or to make sure of is you have a good operator. Excuse me. A plural component machine it's a great piece of kit for high volume. You'll typically see that in the shops where they're doing the high volumes, capital projects. Lots of steel going through the shop at a high pace and high demand. Your operator will make or break you. If you have a good operator, they can know if that pump is running well just based on sound. They can stay ahead of any issues so you don't have a shutdown and you can keep rolling and keep spraying all day. Plural component certainly is a bit more technical, but again, having that good operator will really be a benefit to an applicator.
Yeah, I think it's if you Andrew brings up a good point with the application guidelines. I know from our standpoint, our laboratory spends a lot of time with our tech service group and our laboratory people optimizing the application, and it's different. Mix ratios are different, temperatures are different, pressures are different, but it's all written in the application guideline. And one of the things that is absolutely critical is not only the setup of the machine and somebody's watching that, but believe it or not, preheating the material before it goes into the machine. It's a very simple process. Material comes out of the shop. You want to make sure you have a consistent temperature of material before it actually goes into the machine. Because a lot of what was happening is a lot of applicators were using the machine and not preheating it and heating it up in the machine. And it didn't bode well for them because they were getting a lot of off-ratio mixing going on simply because they were only heating the outer layer, not the inner core part of the material as it's sitting in the pump. And so it produced all kinds of problems. So the message here is if it's in the application guideline, it's real simple to follow that. I always go back to folks and say, dirty feet, do it right the first time. And it'll eliminate all kinds of problems that you may have. Because you got to remember, this is a high build epoxy. And once it cures, an applicator told me, man, it ain't coming off. And it's really difficult and costly to remove it if it's not done right. So just make sure that you follow what's in the plural component guidelines, and you should be just fine.
So related to all the information that we covered, guidelines and product data sheets and everything like that, is there a reference site or a location on the international website that people can obtain a lot of information regarding the solutions from International regarding passive fire protection?
So we have tons and tons of guidance that we make available to our qualified applicators. You can always find the technical data sheets on our customer-facing website. But when it comes to the more detailed manuals, the quality control manual, the application manual for 1709, 2218, Chartex 7, whichever one it may be, we keep those a little bit more secure, I guess, if that's the word you want to use. I don't know if it's the right one, but we keep those and reserve them for our qualified applicators for them to use, to have access to. And if I want to touch on something else, it's really important to us that we maintain strong communication and relationships with our applicators, because these documents, as Bill said, we do tons and tons and tons of testing constantly. And these documents do get updated, our primer lists, our application manuals. It's super important to us that we keep a good relationship with the applicators, and they reach out to us, and we reach out to them and share all these documents as they're updated.
Andrew, Bill, thank you so much. In closing out this episode, is there anything that we didn't talk about that you would want to cover with the viewers?
We call it a qualified applicator program. I prefer to call it a qualified partner program. And we're in partnership with the applicators to help you put our products on properly, but it also makes you more efficient and cost effective in your bids. So as Andrew said, communication is key. Drop a dime to us. We generally try to get back to somebody. Very rarely if we get back to somebody over 8 hours. So if it's an emergency, we'll get to you. If we can't get the answers, we're on the phone. We have a network of global tech service and technical people that can help us out. So feel free to give us a call.
No, I would tag on to what Bill said. It's a partnership, and we just want to work together with our applicators and ensure successful outcome of projects. And the only way we can be successful is through communication.
Thank you for watching this vodcast, and stay tuned for additional episodes upcoming. Thank you very much.